Welcome to the Mayor's 2017 State of the City Address, and I have been reminded to remind you to silence your phones as the first point of order this morning. You know, I've really enjoyed attending these addresses over the last several years, but I will admit I usually look at the back of everyone's heads instead of their two eyes. I've memorized a quote or a line, I think, from every single one of the past addresses, from Earling's reminder that we're not Deadmans anymore, to, let's see, we had Ruth Arista tell us to find some tuna fish, and then we've had noted addresses by Rick Steves and Carolyn Douglas and Barry Crane and amongst others. I think one of the most interesting phenomenons for me is how I've been here for a while and I still feel like a newcomer to Edmonds. So how many people have been either worked in Edmonds for a year, 1 year? How about lived or worked here for 5 years? Keep your hands up. 10? 20? How about 30 years or more? Okay, that's my point exactly. I moved to Edmonds in 1988, and after commuting from Edmonds for 5 years, I bought a business in 1993, and I've been here ever since. But I still feel like a newcomer. That's 29 years for me. And every time I open the Edmonds Beacon, it seems like it starts out with a quote like, "As a resident since 1962, I think..." I don't know how long it takes before your neighbors think you have Edmonds credibility, but I think I've got a ways to go. Since you're here on a Thursday morning, I'm going to hazard a guess that you're either live here, you work here, you're retired, and you probably have a good reason for being here because you're a city employee and your boss is about to speak. But I would also hazard a guess we're the lucky few that get to live, work, and play here. And I recently ran across an article that really caught my eye, and it was titled, "Knowing Your Neighborhood is the Difference Between Success and Failure." And it was written for the Boston Business Journal by a woman by the name of Helen Thompson. And I thought the purpose of that article was to prompt businesses and politicians and the local academics about the importance of neighborhood-level facts and figures in determining how to improve their neighborhoods. I thought, wow, that applies everywhere, including Edmonds. Working in our city here for the past 24 years, I've had the enviable position of being in real estate, and I get to meet people every day who have the following attributes. They either live here, they want to live here, they're considering living here, or they just love visiting here. So that's a pretty good place to be. They all ask the same question, whether people have lived here 25 or more years, or they're just visiting the first time. What makes Edmonds such an amazing city? And I channel my inner Greg Urban from the Chamber of Commerce. I take a deep breath, and I tell you know what? We've got a cradle-to-grave community. We've got a hospital with a birthing center. We've got amazing facilities for the memory impaired. And we've got energetic art scene. We have strollers mixing with walkers and canes. We've got it all. To these people, Edmonds is a neighborhood. And that made me think about, well, they think what they see downtown is the whole thing. You know, we've got a city that stretches some 6 miles from north to south. And we're more than a single neighborhood. We've got names like Picnic Point, Norma Beach, Meadowdale, Perrinville, Seaview, Five Corners, Highway 99, International District, Sherwood, Verdale Village. Each of those conjures an image in our minds. Each of them has a history And it's interesting to see some of that written history come out, and I've reviewed some of those things recently. Kind of fun to read about some of the snake oil salesmen that lived up in Picnic Point. We have 40,000 residents in our neighborhoods. So what makes us unique? You know, according to the U.S. Census Bureau's 2015 estimate, listen to this, Edmonds, in the Snohomish County, 9.6% of all the residents are over the age of 65. Did you know in Edmonds, 20.5% are over the age of 65? That's quite a phenomenon for a small slice of Snohomish County. Now, I know the mayor would want me to tell you this, that Greg, that means that 80% are under the age of 65. And I would probably add, no, I think that's true, but I think it's also we have twice as much wisdom as the rest of Snohomish County. You know, a moment about our downtown neighborhood. In my opinion, this is the most exciting time to run a business in Edmonds in the 24 years I've been here. We've got new restaurants complementing the ones we've learned to love. We've got new businesses occupying formerly empty storefronts and office space. New owners of existing commercial space have rehabilitated and made really needed upgrades. A new museum enhances the already well-known art scene. Plans by local residents to build more art studio for our current and future aspiring artists is in the permitting stage. Our neighborhoods are banding together to enhance and expand an already vibrant senior center. And don't forget our now 10-year-old Center for the Arts, which continues to change and expand its reach. We have a bakery and a one-screen theater and several playhouses. That's what Edmonds has. That's what makes us unique. We have people that care deeply and passionately about our city and how it changes. Emotions will always play a part, and that's a good thing. And yes, we have our issues. We can't depend on parking right in front of the store we want to go into when we want to go into it. And we can't use the drive-through mailbox like we used to. But that is the price of progress. No, we aren't Seattle with its 62 cranes building 10,000 units, housing units, and 11 million square feet of office space. But we have a place where people volunteer their time, their money, and their talents to improve our city. And that's something to celebrate. So if knowing your neighborhood is the difference between success and failure, then knowing your neighbors, knowing your neighborhoods, and knowing your business owners keeps Edmonds vital and relevant and a great place to live, work, and play. Now, with that, I have the pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Janelle, and I'm gonna try it one more time, Milo Dragovich, the CEO of Top 10 Gun Design.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me in the back? Good. Okay. If at any point you can't, let me know. Thank you, Greg, and thank you also to Mayor Earling. As mentioned, I am the CEO of 10 Gun Design. 10 Gun is a design firm actually based in Edmonds, and we've been here for 8 years. But I think that we have the singular piece of being the newest old business in Edmonds. You know, speaking to Greg's theme of you know, how long does it take to have Edmonds credibility? You know, I think much of Edmonds is just finding out about 10 Gun now, even though we've been here just on 5th Street up the road from the IGA since 2009, 2010. Let me share with you a little bit about why 10 Gun chose Edmonds as its place to do business, and in fact, chose it a second time. 10 Gun was founded by 3 Ohio boys. They had a line on some work out in Seattle for what ended up becoming Xbox. At that point, the firm with these 3 gentlemen moved out here, and they found a little postage stamp space at the base of Queen Anne on Dexter Avenue. And at that point, they worked their buns off to start the company, and they grew it over time, and they watched things change and grow and became a business of progress. And really, when we talk about what it is 10 Gun does, what we see is we are in the business of progress. Design doesn't stand still. What our customers started asking them for in 2001, Xbox game packaging, really doesn't even exist today in the same way. But we still continue to work for Xbox on a variety of things, digital, print, everything from the package you see on store shelves in Best Buy all the way to the Xbox.com site. So when we think about sort of what we do and how businesses change and grow, there are pieces of what we do that we could never anticipate. So in 2009, the downturn had hit, but the partners were out of space. 10 Gun had no space. They had about 12 people, and the partners looked at one another and went, wait, why are we spending half of our lives commuting down to Seattle? All of them lived in Points North, Shoreline, Edmonds, and at that point, Mill Creek. And they said, why are we spending our lives on I-5? And really, also, why are our employees struggling to have to either commute down because they can't afford to be in Seattle, or we just can't compete in some ways. So they moved, they found a great space on Fifth Avenue, and I think in 2009 when they moved in, they thought, we're never outgrowing this. We're never gonna, this is fantastic. This is our forever home. Fast forward a little bit longer. In 2015, we started the year with 30 employees in Edmonds, and we finished the year with 50. We now have another 35 that work on site in our East Side location as well. But that's 50 people who live and work every day in Edmonds. We're kind of a quiet neighbor. We don't have crazy parties. We are generally a more millennial crowd. But I like to think that we're a really important part of Edmonds' future. Because let me tell you about how we managed to grow 20 people in 2015. A huge part of that is Edmonds. We were able to go out in a really hot labor market and say, this is what makes us different. Edmonds is what makes us different. And for our employees, most of them, even if they lived in Seattle at the time that they came to work for us, they now live within a 7-mile radius of Edmonds. I think that I'm probably the lone long commuter from Kirkland, of all places. But really, if I didn't have kids in school in Kirkland, we'd be in Edmonds. There is so much vibrancy in this community and a huge future. And when we talk about why we continue to choose Edmonds, we outgrew our space on Fifth Avenue South about a year and a half ago. And again, the partners looked around at themselves and the business and said, where are we going? And we sort of started to go, well, should we look at other places? And really, as we started to look, just the numbers didn't make sense, the locations didn't make sense. And so what we ended up doing was we're going to be moving right down the street. We'll be down on 3rd Avenue South, and we bought a commercial condo, finishing that out, refurbishing it, and we'll have a vibrant new office space right around the corner from here. So we're really excited about the prospects that Edmonds gives us, the competitive advantage it gives our business in a really crowded marketplace that's always changing. And we're really excited to be part of this community in a way that the community welcomes. And so I think, one of the things that I've been most struck by in working in Edmonds is not only the natural beauty and the wonderful community, but it's the fact that we can be stewards of that community while also building the future that will inevitably come. We have the power to take control of some of those tougher questions, especially related to development and how the business community develops into maintaining our diversity. And those are all points that we've been really pleased to see the work of Mayor Earling on as we've gone through the past couple years, certainly that I've been here in Edmonds. So with that, I think we're happy to be here. We're excited about Edmonds. If you ever need an Edmonds pep talk, feel free to call us up because we are here to serve. In the meantime, it is my pleasure to introduce Mayor Earling, who I found to be extremely professional, a wonderful steward, again, of the community that we have and also the one that we need to build. Thank you.
Well, good morning. Everything's going so well, I think we should just have some coffee and leave. Well, maybe not. Seriously, though, having a full house again is truly fun. It puts a sense of energy and vibrancy in the room, and I'm just delighted with the turnouts that we have. I'd like to once again express my thanks to Greg and Janelle for their great and contrasting messages that they had to give today. Would you give them another round of applause? Greg is, as he said, a short-timer in the community, but you also need to know, and you do know, that he is the owner of Windermere Edmonds Real Estate. Beyond that, though, he is also a person who contributes to many youth and community activities. Janelle is relatively new in the community, but is involved with building a new dynamic business, which began with, as she told you today, just a few people, and now has around 55 working. I think it's 50, isn't it, that you now have working here. And right downtown. How many of you people knew that they were right downtown before you heard about it today? Half dozen. So you have been a secret, but you are now unearthed. And oh yes, today we do have someone taking notes, if you will, with a very visible scribe. I'd like to introduce to you Tim Corey of Colibri Facilitation, who'll be taking graphic notes today. And just so you know, the notes that he takes will be at City Hall. Now, I'm not sure where they're going to be yet, but we're going to have them at City Hall so that if you want to see the results of the presentation today, you'll be able to stop by and have a look. As usual, we have other elected officials and dignitaries here today that I would like to acknowledge. If I miss one of you, it's your own damn fault, because I didn't know you were coming, or I haven't seen you yet. So stand guilty if you don't get called upon. The ones that we do have here, though, and I'd like to introduce, we have a few electeds here. Stephanie Wright, I understand you've arrived. Where are you at? And I'm going to ask everyone that I introduced to stand up, and we're only going to have one round of applause, and that wasn't it. So Stephanie, I saw you in the back. Go ahead and stand up again. We have a couple of our city council members, Dave Teitzel, Neil Tibbett. We also have some folks from the community that hold very prominent positions. We have Dr. Robin Fenn, who is the new superintendent of Verdant Health Commission. Council guys, stand up. Everybody's supposed to say yeah. It's hard giving directions. We also have with us today Dr. Chris McDuffie, who is the superintendent of the Edmonds School District, Dr. Jean Hernandez, who is the president of Edmonds Community College. I know we have a couple of folks here from the Economic Alliance, Snohomish County. Would you stand up if we have some of those folks here? Not seeing a whole lot of stand-ups right now. Okay, got it, okay. Oh, there you are, okay. And then we also have Emmett Heath, who is the CEO of Community Transit, and we have Greg Urban, who is the president of the Edmonds Chamber of Commerce. Would you give all of them a round of applause? So, the wonderful holidays are over. We have a balanced and healthy city budget. Both the Cougars and Huskies lost their bowl games. We had a traditional nutso, at least in my humble opinion, polar bear plunge at Brackett Landing. And we have the first ever downtown public restroom finished and open. So what could possibly be left? Well, in reviewing my comments from last year that I made, in some ways, not a whole lot has changed. On the other hand, very dramatic changes continue to evolve in our community. There is, however, one underlying point I do want to emphasize, and it's the one message I want you walking out the door with today. And as soon as this works, we'll be in good shape. There we are. We still ain't Edmonds anymore. Give yourself a round of applause, Edmonds. You know, and I feel pretty passionate about that because I know what this town looked like 15, 20 years ago. You used to be able to come downtown anytime at 6 o'clock in the evening and park any place you want to. I'm proud to say now that you have to look for a parking place. And it's because we've brought a new resilience and vibrancy to our community. But you have to face it, we are in the middle of a major metropolitan region from Marysville to DuPont to Falls City to Kitsap County, which has brought about change even within our community. But at the same time, we have successfully maintained our desired small-town atmosphere. Let me give you a brief reminder of some of last year's State of the City presentation of some of the dramatic projected growth we are facing in the state of Washington, the Puget Sound region, Snohomish County, and our community. Think about this. By 2040, the state of Washington, which currently has around 7 million people, will grow to over 9 million people. The Puget Sound region, which is currently about 3.8 million people, we are told by Puget Sound Regional Council, PSRC, that we will grow to about 5 million people in that same geographic area. Snohomish County is forecast to grow about 220,000 people. That's a lot of folks to bring into our community. Edmonds is predicted to have around 5,500 more people, all in a city that we pretty much think of as just being kind of built out. So what are we going to do with all of that? We're going to have another 5,500 people. If we're going to have to add this thing, it's going to cause me trouble, I can tell. We are predicted to have another 1,200 housing units to house 5,000 additional people. We're supposed to be able to provide another 1,000 jobs. Where are we going to put all of that? How are we going to facilitate that kind of change and growth? We're all in a city that we think is already pretty well built out. And I want you to remember pretty built out, because we're going to have to find different ways to solve the projected changes that I think we have coming. Where and how are we going to make it all happen? I think it's not time for us to procrastinate, but it is, in fact, a time for us to do serious planning and to take action. And oh, please, let's not start with the premise. Boy, this is a fancy deal. Thanks, Mr. Steves. You know, the suggestion at one time was, well, let's just build a wall around town. The good news is, Nicholas Smith isn't here for me to tell her that she'd have to build the wall and pay for it. Don't tell her, don't tell her. Anyway, the point is, we are in a growing area. We can't also put up other barriers for people to have to get through. We're going to be part of that. We're really kind of in the center of this sort of growth that's going on. Yikes, you say, where is it that we're going to put all of these? The 1,000 jobs, 1,200 housing units. That's really a challenge that we're going to have to think our way through. Let's mix in some local. Oh, good. Let's mix in some regional economic information that we have going, where we are locally and what we might anticipate locally and regionally. Let's be blunt. We've had a marvelous rebound from the 2008 recession. My first year in office in 2012, we had to make dramatic budget cuts, which, with those cuts, a cautious approach to budgeting, along with improving economy, we find ourselves today in Edmonds in pretty good financial shape. The report I gave you last year showed substantial revenue 2015 over 2014, And 2014 was a very good year, but we had dramatic change and growth. I bring you similar good news on revenue today, 2016 even over 2015. Bottom line, we have a vibrant economy here in Edmonds. We've come far, but I need to give you a couple of economic facts to consider when I say I am cautious. And you say, geez, Dave, that's all you ever say is you're cautious. Well, that's the reason we're in pretty good financial shape today. We need to show you a couple of things that I just wanted to highlight. First of all, let's look at the sales tax. Really dramatic. You look back in 2011, we had $4.6 million in sales tax. We're now just under $7 million. Magical things have happened in this community that really makes us grow, and people are spending more time, as Greg alluded to, in the downtown area. We have this wonderful restaurant scene that people love to come to. That's the reason after 6 o'clock you have to hunt for a parking place. Now back to my original point, though, is where do we put all of these people? Well, there's a couple of more things I want to show you. This is real estate excise tax, something very dear to Greg's heart. With a sale, that's a tax you pay at that time. And look at the way we've grown here. This past year, we're at $2.6 million, basically. And it's really, it's not going down yet. It's going to end up going straight when I tell you that there was a major office building that sold in 2015 that was $170,000 in excise tax. If you flatline it then, which is what happens, it really doesn't drop much. The one thing back, I'll slide though, if we can get this happy thing to work. I want to mention, if you look at the way this curve has gone up, 2015 to 2016, it starts to flatten out a bit. That's another signal to me that maybe we should be more cautious as we move forward. So that's the kind of information that I like to work with and know about. Also, though, I've asked Scott James to sort of sketch out past recessions and recoveries that we've had. We had a magnificent 120-month expansion back in the 90s, dramatic growth throughout the region. We then bumped into a recession that lasted about 8 months. And then for the next several years, we did a 73-month expansion. Then we bumped into 2008, which we all know about. And we had an 18-month and really a great recession. I don't mean great in a good way, but it was the worst since the Depression. We've come back out of it. We've been in now a 92-month expansion. What we need to think about there is many of these expansions and contractions run in 8 to 12-year cycles. We're now entering the 9th year of this upward growth. And so it's something that I want to keep thinking about as we try and work on what our financial future is. I just wanted to point out another good piece of information. We have a 4% unemployment rate in the Puget Sound Basin now. That's fabulous stuff. Lots of people are going to work. I want to overlay that, though, with, we skipped one again, with the real estate excise tax. Look at the bow waves there when you look at the unemployment and you see when real estate excise tax spikes. The bow waves are pretty consistent as you go across there, and so we need to keep that information in mind. This one has to do with the sales tax. Of course, we've got this dramatic spike in sales tax. That's from the increased business that we have. The other thing I want to highlight, though, is in about 2005, we had 109 new housing starts in the city of Edmonds. This past year, we had 43 new housing starts. The year before that, I think it was 53 or 54, something like that. So, gets back to my point of where we're going to put all of these people. We're not going to have 1,200 new houses, that's for sure. So we're going to have to make some adjustments in the way that we plan. How are we going to get that many people introduced into our community? Back, though, to my original point, where do you put the increase in population, the housing units, and the jobs? As I mentioned before, it's important that we plan ahead for the changes. We currently have, though, some really exciting things going on that you need to know about and you do know about, too. We just added 40 new housing units down on 2nd Avenue. The builder there, the developer, is going to add another 22 housing units. So right in that one project, we're going to have 62 new housing units. In addition, if you ever get that chance to talk to him, he's planning a restaurant and retail on the first floor that looks really exciting to me. Another example is Westgate. On the southwest corner of Westgate, we have an important and I think dynamic new project beginning this spring, which will expand retail, parking, and will add 80 housing units. Some of the housing will be below market affordable housing, which is key to our community. We need to provide more affordable housing. We're an expensive community to live in. All very exciting with a reputable developer who has great success in regional markets. Hopefully, with this successful project, others will follow. Even the best news about it is the person who's involved in it, or the family that's involved in it, live right here in Edmonds. I don't know, he was maybe thinking about being here today. Is Dave Barber here? Dave's right here. Dave Barber and his family they're one of the principals in the development that's going to happen down there. You'll see over time several phases that will happen. He happens to be married to Jean Bartell Barber. And as you know, there is a Bartell's facility on that corner. I want to show you the first phase. That's all I've got to show right now, but it's going to be a dramatic change from what you are used to seeing there. That's the first phase. That'll have housing, obviously. It will have retail on the lower level. It will have expanded parking, and they will eventually work going east, I guess it would be, Dave, to do more development. This is a truly exciting project that will bring a renaissance, I think, in attitudes of where we can place some of these 5,500 people. Some of these dwelling units will be affordable housing. That's part of the arrangement that we were able to work out with the developer. So Dave, would you just stand up and let us give you an acknowledgement? Great, thank you very much. Another exciting place, though, is Highway 99. We're just completing a Highway 9 sub-regional plan. Sort of a funky title, but what it really does, we're going to do a study, and we have been doing a study for our 2-mile stretch of Highway 99. We are hoping, after we acknowledge that I think there are really 3 anchors in that area, and that is in the south end, we have the car dealerships. In the middle, we have the international district. And at the far north end, we have the hospital and medical complex that is there. Those are the anchors. We need to figure out how, with this resulting study, we can show how to bridge the area into a cohesive neighborhood, which includes residential over retail, office space, along with pedestrian-friendly areas and improved transportation. Again, this is an area we can focus on with affordable housing. This is partially the results of the consultant that we've had working with us. It shows the 3 districts that I just mentioned, and we've got to figure out how to unify the themes that I think we have going there. This is an example of the potential. We could have retail on the first floor, we could have housing units above, and again, it's an area that I want to focus on, affordable housing. Okay, that's enough of the change coming and the budget issues. Let's talk about some of the successes that we've had this past year. This is all hand-drawn by Carolyn LaFay, well, maybe not. Carolyn, you didn't know you'd done that. One of the, I think, most important successes we've had is we now have a strong economy in our community. Goodness knows our business centers, whether downtown, Highway 99, Westgate, and others, are vibrant with energy and activity. New businesses keep coming, our real estate transactions are strong, and new commercial and residential construction is in a bit of a renaissance. Another important change, success, is the major project we just did at 228th and Highway 99. There's a safety issue that we helped cure here. More importantly, though, now we have another east-west connector. We've had so much emphasis in our entire region of going north-south. How are you going to get to Seattle and back? We need to shift now, and with Community Transit's help and other agencies, we need to focus on going east-west because we need to get people to where the light rail will eventually be coming. And that's one of the efforts that we thought about when we did this particular development. We need to focus on east-west connectors. This is about an $8 million project that we did in connection with Mount Lake Terrace. They were terrific to work with. You can see here that this picture is kind of taken up above. Well, there's no tall building there. So you've got two ways that I can think of that you can take care of a picture like that. You can either have a bucket truck, that is one that has the arm that takes people up in the air, or you can have a drone. So I'm going to show you now which way the picture was or wasn't taken. Dave Brody, are you here? When I saw that picture, I said, there's got to be a way we can weave it in here someplace. I'm sure Dave is just delighted to know that he's fully exposed here. But seriously, a very important project that we just frankly completed is the rehabilitation of the fishing pier. That place has been in place for 40 years, folks, and it was getting in pretty bad shape. We supervised a complete rehabilitation of that site. They tell us now that it should last for another 40 years. We have literally, as you've been down there a lot, there are tens of thousands of people that utilize that fishing pier every year. It's a very important amenity to the community. We need to be aware of that, and in fact, the state who owns it has asked the city of Edmonds to assume ownership of it. The city council will make a decision on that soon, but my inclination is that they will go ahead and do that. You don't need to shake your heads up and down. Another important success that we've just had is the completion of the Fire District 1 negotiations. That took a year or so to work its way through, but I just recently signed the modified language to our 20-year agreement, and so in part of the negotiation, the Fire District agreed that we would then have one advanced life support at each of the 3 stations. I see that as a real benefit to the entire community. And oh, by the way, we saved $1.3 million a year in the negotiations. Go ahead. I've already spent the money, don't worry. Or at least the staff will spend it for me, I guess. You know, last year I talked a little bit about having a downtown restroom. And we did some work last year to try and give you an architectural potential design. Some of you in the community seem to have some quarrel with that. So we put the planning department right back to work again. And this is the one that's currently on site. It's really a fabulous, I guess if you think of restrooms as fabulous, Nonetheless, it's located right between the Rusty Pelican and City Hall in the parking lot in there, and it's really terrific. It'll be a great thing for the downtown business community, who now has to say yes or no every time someone wants to use their restroom. It's a great thing for the tourist community, and it's also a great thing for our local community itself. Another success is the street crimes unit. With the budget crunch of 2008, we had to make some difficult decisions. One was cutting the street crimes unit. We've restored that unit this year, and they are now moving with great success to reduce residential and commercial burglary, prostitution, and drug-related challenges that we all know about are in our community. Another success this year is we are about to unleash Kerry Height with a master plan for Civic Field. You know that that's an 8-acre site that the city purchased a little over a year ago. And this is an opportunity for us to provide a legacy from this generation for future generations. The planning process is getting very close to being finished. And I'm hopeful that the council will be getting to this, I think, in March sometime. So we get approval, then there's a couple of steps we still have to do, like raising money. But nonetheless, this is a real legacy project for our generation. Another is, and we've already talked about it, we're almost finished with the Highway 99 sub-area plan. As I've talked about before, we have the 3 anchors to start with, which are wonderful quality businesses. We need to fill in the balance. Our challenge, in fact, is to bring quality mixed uses to the area with retail, office, affordable housing to further create a vibrant, walkable neighborhood in that area. Another recent success is I appointed probably almost a year and a half ago now a task force to take a look at how we could safely move people back and forth across the railroad tracks when we have both Maine and Dayton closed with either a train coming through or, as we have had 3 or 4 times since I've been in office, actually shut down both of those intersections. And it becomes a desperate situation. You can't tell someone with a heart attack to hang on for a few minutes while the train goes through town. This is the product they came up with, and I think it's brilliant. It is a way to provide safety, that is, to and from the waterfront area, and at the same time, it keeps the character, I think, of what Edmonds is like. If you can see in the upper area, there's only a slight rise as we would go down towards the waterfront. The topography changes enough there so that it's fairly easy for us to get over the railroad tracks, so that we, on this one lane road, can get EMS trucks, we can get fire trucks to and from without any particular holdup. Remember, the fire department, police department are what, 3 blocks away? So it'll be easy access when there is an emergency down on the waterfront. We'll also be able to load and unload a ferry if, in fact, both of those intersections are blocked. That happens maybe 2, 3, 4 times a year. At that time, they could unload a ferry or load a ferry. It is, however, intended to be 99% pedestrian and bicycle friendly. That's what it's about. We will not allow cars to drive on that road except in an emergency usage. It's an important distinction, I think, for the community. It's Edmonds Street, which is 2 blocks north of the ferry dock. So it's convenient, quick, and we can take care of a combination of safety issues with that. This project will cost someplace between $25 and $30 million. So there's a little bit of a hill to climb there for that. You know, we've had other notable successes, but we also need to talk about the challenges coming our way. And I think you should have to participate in them, so we're going to throw you in the middle of the challenges and you can help us sort it out. How do you think that fish feels? He's hoping. One of the challenges we have is Highway 99 and Civic Field. How do we pay for them? There's a little contrast in the potential. We know that the Civic Field is going to cost someplace between $8 and $10 million, a lot of money. And we are, though, beginning to look at the various sources we could go to begin to put together, assemble that money. On the Highway 99 situation, we have something a little bit different. We already have $10 million for Highway 99 as part of the transportation package that was passed a couple of years ago by the legislature. They had to program money out over the 16-year program. We still have 3 or 4 years to go before we get to our $10 million. Hell, I can't spend $10 million in 1 year. So we're going to meet with the legislature this year. We've already done that to see if we can pull some amount of that money forward so we can continue the work that we've begun with the sub-area plan that we've talked about already. Another one, I've already mentioned the $25 to $30 million for the waterfront connector. We've already been to Washington, D.C. to introduce the project that you've already seen to our congressional staff, to our Congress people, also to the Federal Department of Transportation. The response in D.C. was very upbeat. They like the project. They can see it's one that solves a very difficult situation for a relatively small amount of money. Some of the other projects that the task force came up with would cost $350 million. Well, how many decades do you think we'll have to wait before we get to that kind of money? This one for $25 to $30 million really excited people in Washington, D.C. because it's a doable number, even though it's a lot of money. We've also been in Olympia and introduced the project to our state legislators. Very positive down there, too. Head of the House and Senate Transportation Committees, along with our local legislator representatives. Very positive response. Right now, we're trying to figure out how we can come up with about $1 million so we can go to the next stage on that project, which is doing some of the preliminary engineering work. We can do some of the environmental work and do some preliminary design. Nonetheless, we're going to try and be in motion on this project, and I think it will eventually come together. I also, another concern of mine is how do we continue the road resurfacing program that we have been going? Previous to me coming into office, for 5 years, no road resurfacing had happened in our community. It was used as a budget-cutting tool to balance the budget for several years. In the last 4 years, we've paid out about $5 million to start the resurfacing program, and I think with great success. I am concerned, though, with my old word cautious, how much longer we'll be able to take $1 million out of the funds that we are currently taking from to pursue this project. So I think we're going to have to find some sort of alternative way to continue this road resurfacing program, because while we've made a dent in the need, it's only a dent. Another challenge is just trying to continue the budget strength that I've already talked about. We have, right now in our community, 3 or 4 years, we've been building a very strong local economy. I've also tried to let you know along the way that the economy doesn't always just go up. So we're going to have to, as I said before, cautious. Yes, and I know I say cautious, and yes, I know I say I'm conservative, but tough it out, kids, because I'm careful with your money. The last problem I want to challenge that we've got to attack is the idea of homelessness, mental health, and drug issues. I've already mentioned that we started the street crimes unit this year. They've really made a tremendous impact already on some of these issues that you see here. This next year, we will be placing a police officer at Edmonds Woodway High School. Now, it may not be quickly apparent, but having an officer and the same person almost always in that school begins to penetrate some of the homelessness issues. They can talk to kids that are having troubles, maybe their family's having troubles. We can also begin to identify some of the drug-related problems that we all know about goes on in our community. The third thing I'll mention is the city of Linwood and Edmonds are going together to hire a social worker. That social worker can be out in the public working on some of these issues. Hopefully we'll have that agreement pulled together here in the next month or two. This is really only the beginning, but we acknowledge the problem and take the issue seriously. There's a couple of community projects that I want to mention. These are not challenges. Well, one of them is still sort of a challenge. But the first one I wanted to mention is the Veterans Plaza. The Veterans Plaza is going to start construction in the next few days. They have a fence out where this will go, and it will be over by the council chambers and the court chambers. It's really a magnificent project. The community has come together and put together over $570,000 to put this project in place. The veterans have done a fabulous job in participating. Private citizens have stepped up, and the city has joined in as we can. The other one I want to mention is the Waterfront Center. It's on the site where our senior center is now. It will become a community center and the senior center. There's been a great deal of money either raised or pledged already. They still need more. We'll have a collection plate at the, no. Seriously though, they've really come a long ways. I'm convinced after the progress they've made that it is a reality and it will happen. It will still be a ways out, I'm sure. But both of these projects demonstrate how our community can and will come together on major projects that serve the community, work together, raise the funds, and put the projects together. We've had several successes and challenges I've already mentioned to you. And the successes are done. The challenges will be done. But all of the challenges, I think, are projects that we need to take and complete to benefit the community. Okay, so I've taken you on a traditional tour of state and city speeches. We talked about the changes we see coming in state, regional, county, and city growth, and how we need to plan and respond to those changes. Where will we put those 5,500 people, 1,200 housing units, and 1,000 jobs? That's part of what we're thinking about, and we're beginning to deal with those issues. We've tried to describe the success we've had in building an economy which is strong, hopefully sustainable, and has helped transform our community into a vibrant, energetic community which is excited about itself and welcomes the future. We've talked about how the staff and city council have assembled successful projects all across the city. And yes, without apology, we've taken on large and complex projects with great success. We've also taken on we also still have tough challenges to take up. With a truly great staff, a group of city council members, don't tell the others what I'm about to say, a group of city council members who really understand we must plan, but more importantly, we must take action. Sometimes that's a novel effect with city government. You don't have to say that either. But it's important for us to acknowledge that we do have a group of people now that are action-oriented, that want to see things happen. I suppose, we have to ask our question, will we ever fall short? Of course we will. Things happen like that. But you need to know that we have good people doing hard work here all the time, whether it's the council, the staff, or me. In closing, one other thing I wanted to mention. Our staff and council members are both hard at work participating in key regional boards and projects. They are already focused on causing influence on those boards and commissions to represent our community. That continued regional effort will be key to our future. In closing, some of you may recall, I wrote a column a while back, which in part reflected on a t-shirt, of all things, I saw in an airport in Hawaii. Yeah, I was there. It was my vacation. The t-shirt had a very simple thing to say, and it said, "Leave it better than when you arrived." You know, that again is really something simple to say. But when I read that, it has stuck with me. It has made a profound impact on me. Because I believe this simple message is one that we all strive to practice in our everyday lives. Whether it is your family, your profession, service clubs, or friendships, we all want to leave the condition better. I can tell you the staff, council, and I work to improve your city every day. We all want to leave it better than when we arrived. In conclusion, as I say at the end of every State of the City presentation, I am pleased and proud to be the mayor of Edmonds, Washington, and thank you for the opportunity to serve. Thank you.
Really was a full house today. I want to thank Dave for his caution, and I want to thank his leadership and the council for taking such a good care of our city. And I'll do my part in trying to keep those real estate taxes high, the collections high. I don't want the taxes to be high. And I'm going to count on Janelle to hire more people. We'll get her done. Thanks for being here today. Thank you very much.